Ladies and gentlemen, we will soon be beginning the ceremony. If you could take your seats and turn off your cell phones. אנחנו מתחילים עוד מעט, בבקשה לשבת ולזכור את הטלפונים. Distinguished guests, good morning and welcome to the awarding of the Gold Medal for Military Valor in honour of the Jewish Brigade on behalf of the Republic of Italy. Please turn off all cellular communication devices and note there is no need to wear berets or salute while the national anthems are played at the end. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the Italian Ambassador to Israel and Chief of the Ground Forces. the Honourable Italian Ambassador to Israel, His Excellency Gianluigi Benedetti, Chief of the Ground Forces, Major General Yaakov Barak, Mr. Aryeh Moalemi, Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Defence and Head of the Bereaved Families, Commemoration and Heritage Department, Ms. Noemi de Segenye, President of the Union of Italian Jewish Communities, Commander of the 7th Armoured Brigade, ambassadors, attachés, representatives of the Ministries of Defence and Foreign Affairs, distinguished veterans of the Jewish Brigade, families, commanders, and soldiers. We gather here this morning in the battalion's museum, the Beit Guvrin, to award the Gold Medal of Military Valor in honour of the Jewish Brigade to the 7th Armoured Brigade on behalf of the Republic of Italy. The Jewish Brigade Group, or as it is known in Hebrew, Brigata Ebraica, was established in 1944 and was part of the British Army during the Second World War, serving as volunteers from the Jewish community of the British Mandate of Palestine. Through the political department of the Jewish Agency, the leadership of the Jewish settlement demanded and urged throughout the duration of the war to establish a Jewish brigade similar to that of the Jewish Legion that operated during the First World War. Comprised entirely of Jewish members of the settlement, the volunteers from the settlement initially served only as part of the British Expeditionary Force, but not under their own unit and symbols. Only at the turn of the war in 1944 did the British agree on the establishment of the Jewish Brigade. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill declared on 28th September 1944, "The government have decided to accede to the request of the Jewish Agency for Palestine, that the Jewish Brigade Group should be formed to take part in active operations. I know there are vast numbers of Jews serving with our forces and American forces throughout all the armies, but it seems to me indeed appropriate that a special Jewish unit, a special unit of that race which has suffered indescribable torment from the Nazis, should be represented as a distinct formation amongst the forces gathered for their final overthrow." 5 days after this announcement, the decision was further approved by the United States President Franklin D. Roosevelt. During October of 1944, the brigade began to prepare itself in Camp Borg al-Arab near Alexandria, Egypt. Soon after, in November of 1944, the Jewish Brigade arrived at the port of Taranto in Italy, where they moved to Figui, where they began their training. After 3.5 months of brigade training, brigade training ended and the forces were sent to the front lines as part of the British military's Italy campaign. The brigade took part in the Sena River battle in early 1945 and was later deployed to the front in Alfonsine, where they fought in 2 battles during the course of the 19th and 20th of March 1945. After these battles, the brigade was redeployed back to the Sena River, where they faced the Nazis head-on. In May of 1945, towards the end of the Second World War, the Jewish Brigade reached its northernmost point in the city of Treviso, serving as guards and completing military objectives. In July of 1945, the brigade was transferred to Belgium and the Netherlands, where it continued its efforts to assist Jews in making Aliyah. In the summer of 1946, the brigade was disbanded by the British Army. The brigade spent a total of 54 days fighting the Italian campaign. They suffered 57 casualties, 30 of whom originated from the British Mandate. A further 130 were injured. Those that fell in combat were buried in the Pangipone cemetery near Ravenna. Following the announcement by the Italian government of the awarding of the gold medals to the Jewish Brigade, the Chief of the General Staff, Lieutenant General Gadi Eisenkot, decided that the IDF's 7th Armoured Brigade would be the recipient of the award. During the establishment of the 7th Armoured, it was decided to adopt the colours of the Jewish Brigade. Similarly, the first commander of the 7th Brigade was Shlomo Shamil, who served with the Jewish Brigade and fought in the campaign in Italy. The Honourable Ambassador will now award the Gold Medal of Military Valor in honour of the Jewish Brigade to the 7th Armoured Brigade. The commander of the 7th Brigade, Colonel Roman Goffman, along with a flag bearer carrying the unit's standard, will head to the platform. It is with great pleasure I invite the Honourable Italian Ambassador to Israel, His Excellency Gianluigi Benedetti, to present the award. I invite His Excellency the Ambassador to speak.
Boker Tov, Likulam, buongiorno a tutti. Members of the Jewish Brigade, Major General Barak, President Noemi Di Segni, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Today represents a remarkable and unforgettable moment. We are celebrating the outstanding contribution of the Jewish Brigade to the liberation of Italy from the Nazi-fascist oppression. Their example is a source of pride and inspiration. Young people who, leaving their homelands behind, came to fight in our country. Some of them are here with us this morning. Let me tell them, Toda Rabah. The President of the Italian Republic, Sergio Mattarella, countersigning the law awarding this decoration, unanimously approved by the Parliament, reminded us that we should be extremely grateful to the Jewish Brigade because they died for our freedom. Their blood is our brothers' blood. Therefore, for me today, it's a great honor to award the Brigade with the highest military decoration of the Italian Republic, the Gold Medal for Military Valor. The remarkable deeds of the Jewish Brigade represent a story of bravery that has struggled to become known, and it is now an essential part of our country's collective memory. Also thanks to an Italian journalist who is here with us today, and to my predecessor. I'm sure that thanks to this high official decoration, the men who were protagonists of those incredible acts of generosity will be always remembered in our hearts. Today we are here to thank those who actively contributed, together with the Allied forces, the Italian partisan groups, as well as the loyal Italian armed forces, to the recovery of our freedom, our national unity, and the beginning of a new democratic path for our people. Young people that back then did not yet have their own state. They found the generosity to fight and die for the freedom of others. They deserve all our respect and admiration and our deepest gratitude. The Honorable Quartapelle, who spearheaded the parliamentary initiative that brought to the awarding of the gold medal, asked me to convey to you a personal message on this occasion, and I quote, "Dear friends, I took the initiative to award the Jewish Brigade with the Gold Medal of Military Valor to honor the courage and the spirit of those who risk their life to let the ideals of freedom and justice prevail. The unanimous approval by the Italian Parliament has been instrumental to develop a shared collective memory in in Italy, end quote. As you know, the Jewish Brigade, then part of the British armies, was the first officially recognized all-Jewish unit from the issue, fighting under the flag that would later become Israel's flag. In Italy, they fought the Nazis for several months, and when the war ended, the brigade stationed in the north of our country, assisting the refugees, particularly orphan children, for whom they organized housing and Jewish schooling. The soldiers were also active in directing and organizing the flow of survivors towards southern Italy, from where thousands of Jews crossed the Mediterranean to the Promised Land, thanks to the sympathy of the Italian authorities. In addition, as David Ben-Gurion recognized after World War II, these soldiers also contributed to the future and sovereign Israel. In fact, the participation in the war played no small part in the training of what would have later become the IDF, and many of the soldiers who had served in the brigade, whose official colors were later adopted by the 7th Armored Brigade in 1948, went on to fight in Israel's 1948 War of Independence. Today's ceremony represents another milestone in 2018, a year which, beyond any doubt, can be considered exceptional in the relationship between Italy and Israel, because it marked both 70 years from the Israeli Declaration of Independence and 70 years from the entry into force of the Constitution of the Italian Republic. In these 70 years, our countries grew politically, socially, and economically from the tragedy of World War II, inspired by the principles of freedom and democracy. The Italian democracy and its free society were made possible also by the commitment of people like the soldiers that today we honor. Our life rests on the shoulders of these giants. May the memory always be a blessing.
I am honoured to invite the Chief of the Armoured Corps, Brigadier General Guy Hassan, to speak on behalf of the IDF.
Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov. In July 1944, the British government decided to establish a unit of Jewish fighters from Israel. 5,000 fighters composed the Jewish Brigade, found themselves fighting on the Italian front during World War II. The contribution to the victory and the liberation of Italy was left by many. In time, a special connection formed between the fighters of the Jewish Brigade and the nation of Italy, a connection that we see today between the two nations. Today, 17 years after the establishment of the State of Israel, we stand here in the Battalion Museum and recognize the heroism of the soldiers of the Jewish Brigade with our Italian friends. The fighters of the Jewish Brigade acted as a basis of the establishment of the early Jewish fighting organization in Israel, and later the IDF. Today, the 7th Armored Brigade celebrated 17 years since its founding. The 7th Brigade has participated in all of the Israeli defense effort. The brigade fought in the War of Independence and was a major factor in the breaking out to Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. In addition, they fought in the Six-Day War, the Yom Kippur War, in the Syrian front, and the First and Second Lebanon Wars. Moreover, the 7th Brigade has participated in all campaigns in Gaza Strip. And today, and even in this time, the 7th Brigade soldiers and officers operated with courage and responsibility, and is determined to protect the borders of our country. Members of the 7th Brigade in the last 70 years embody today what the fighters and the commanders of the Jewish Brigade embodied during World War II. Today, the courage, determination, and sense of responsibility and mission are vital characteristics that allows the 7th Brigade to protect Israeli citizens. This is why the brigade has been chosen to receive the gold medal. The story of the 7th Brigade is closely interwoven with the ongoing story of the Jewish people that began 70 years ago. The story of the Jewish Brigade acts as a compass for today's IDF soldiers and commanders. It embodies the important, magnificent relationship that shared today by Israel with the Jewish community in Italy and with the Italian state. The connection development of the partnership is a comment, and I have no doubt that this significant cooperation will continue to evolve. Today, with a great honor, we accept the gold medal in behalf of the Jewish Brigade. We would like to thank to the Italian government, the Jewish community in Italy, Israeli embassy and military attaché in Italy for the whole effort taken in the past years in recognizing the Jewish Brigade with this award. Thank you all.
I am honored to invite Ms. Noemi Di Seghegne, President of the Union of Italian Jewish Communities.
Buongiorno a tutti, בוקר טוב לכולם. כבוד האלוף יעקב ברק, כבוד שגריר איטליה בישראל ג'אנלואיג'י בנדטי, חיילים, נציגים ואורחים יקרים. Signor Generale Capo delle Forze di Terra dell'Esercito Kobi Barak, Sua Eccellenza Ambasciatore Gianluigi Benedetti, illustre autorità, cari ospiti, cari soldati. Porto il saluto di tutte le comunità ebraiche italiane che partecipano a questo momento a lungo atteso e l'abbraccio forte ai reduci della brigata qui presenti e alle loro famiglie. Un saluto che porgo anche alle associazioni dei combattenti e dei reduci della Resistenza che ci seguono nell'odierna cerimonia dall'Italia. בשם 21 הקהילות היהודיות באיטליה שמשתתפות כולן במעמד זה לא ייחלנו רבות. אני מביאה בפניכם את דרישת שלומם ובמיוחד לכם, לוחמי הבריגדה היהודית שהיום כאן איתנו למשפחותכם. דרישת שלום שברצוני להפנות גם לארגונים הלוחמים לשחרור איטליה שהביעו את השתתפותם הרוחנית בטקס זו לא ייחלנו רבות. בהתרגשות רבה אני משתתפת בטקס זה להענקת מדליית הזהב לגבורה לבריגדה היהודית. הוקרה והכרה ממסדית שהגיעה בשלהי יולי 2017, בעלות ערך רב ומעידות על רצונה של איטליה לכבד את זכרם ותרומתם של הלוחמים היהודים שכתבו דף מהחשובים ביותר במלחמת השחרור של איטליה מעול הנאצים והפשיסטים. עם ציון שנת ה-80 לאכיפת חוקי הגזע באיטליה, יש לכך משמעות מיוחדת. החוק אושר בפרלמנט האיטלקי בפה אחד. יש לציין זאת גם לאורך הצורך להגן ולהדגיש היום את עיקרי החוקה האיטלקית ביתר חוזקה. למרת ליה קוארטפלי, חברת הפרלמנט יוזמת החוק, אנו מביעים את הוקרותינו על נחישותה ומפעלה. המילה דגל היא בעלת משמעות חשובה, ובאופן מיוחד על ידי צבעים וסמלים היא מסיעה זהות, שייכות, אמונה, לוחמה שהייתה, לוחמה על תרבות וערכים שנמשכת. דגל איטליה, דגל ישראל, דגל הבריגדה עליו היום מתנוססת המדליה הם עדות לכך. כ5,000 לוחמים מתנדבים הגיעו מפלסטינה המנדטורית של אז ומארצות אחרות שהיו תחת נתינות בריטנית. באומץ ובנחישות הם הגיעו לאיטליה בחודשי המלחמה האחרונים. מסירותם ותרומתם חשובים ביותר. הם לחמו יחד עם המחתרת והפרטיזנים האיטלקים, ביניהם גם כ1,000 יהודים צעירים מקהילות איטליה השונות. אלו רק חלק מהשמות שיותר מוכרים. רב אליו טואף, אומברטו טראצ'יני, אנזו אמיליו סרני, ויטוריו פואה, פרימו לוי, לאו וליאני, ליאנה מילו. בחודשים שלאחר השחרור, עזרתם החשובה התמקדה בסיוע לניצולי השואה, ובמיוחד לשיקום הקהילות ההרוסות לחלוטין. כלום לא נותר, מצרכי מזון, מתקנים, בתי כנסת, אך יותר מכל, שאלת החיים והייעוד, האמון בבני אנוש, והתקווה לחבק מישהו אהוב. עם מפעלם וללא לאות הם הצליחו להפריח שוב תקוות חיים, תקוות עתיד, וקצב באיטליה שאט אט הרימה את ראשה. לכן למדליה זו ערך חשוב בהבאת האמת לאור על דברי הימים שלרבים אינם מוכרים, והם חלק מזהותנו האישית והציבורית. יוזמה זו חשובה גם כדי למנוע שימוש מעוות במושג שחרור איטליה, שלצערנו אנו עדים לו בשנים האחרונות בחגיגות ה-25 באפריל. ואם אתמול צעירים יהודיים הגיעו מכאן לאיטליה כדי להילחם למענה, היום ישנם צעירים שבאים מאיטליה לישראל כדי להשתתף במאמץ להגנת המדינה וערכיה. Combattenti della Brigata, ricordiamo ogni anno il vostro valoroso contributo, coraggio e ideale di vita e lo ricorderemo anche il prossimo 18 ottobre a Piangipani, in provincia di Ravenna, nel cimitero alleato dove riposano i giovani e giovanissimi caduti della Brigata insieme ad una moltitudine di combattenti di varie nazionalità e religioni che diedero il loro sangue per regalarci la libertà, per regalarla ai nostri giovani spensierati, convinti che la guerra in Europa appartiene solo alla storia e non si ripeterà. דוגמת אלו שהאמינו כולם באידיאל משותף, אפשרה לאירופה להעביר דף לאחר שנות אימה, ולעסוק בבניית איחוד אשר מבוסס על אחווה ושלום. ערכים שאנו נדרשים היום להגן עליהם מפני זרמים מחודשים של אנטישמיות, שנאה, לאומניות ופופוליזם, ולמוטט את כל מה שנבנה בזיעת אפיים. גם זה אני משערת מהותו של יום זה. תודה רבה לכולם.
We will conclude the ceremony by playing both national anthems. So please rise for the Italian national anthem, L'inno dei Mameli, followed by the Israeli national anthem, Alla. This concludes our ceremony. Please wait until the Honourable Italian Ambassador and the Chiefs of the Ground Forces have departed, after which we invite you to visit the Italians Museum. We would also like to invite the veterans of the Jewish Brigade outside to take a group photo with the Italian Ambassador and the Chief of the Ground Forces. Thank you all very much for your attention.